I am Lila Catelier. I'm the curator of public programs at Cranbrook Art Museum, and I am curating the project, Something Else in the Garden by Autophysiopsychic Millennium. This project started about a year ago, shortly after I joined the art museum, when we realized that there was an ensemble, a creative ensemble called Autophysiopsychic Millennium, who are celebrating the legacy, the philosophy, and the music of Dr. Yusef Abdul Lateef. Lateef is a very important jazz musician from Detroit who is really well known for introducing Eastern musical instruments into jazz. And this project is really important because what it does is try to sort of take back creative agency, especially for Black music specifically, railing against terms like the genre of jazz. In 1958, Cranbrook Academy's Studio Council had the first opportunity to invite outside artists to perform at the Art Museum, and the organization that they invited first was Yusef Lateef's quintet. That concert was recorded and made into a live album, which is called Live at Cranbrook, which has now been in production for 65 years. This summer, we have a listening room at the Art Museum called Lateef at Cranbrook, and we have documentation from that original concert, including photographs and the recorded album, in the museum, open until September 24th. So it's for the summer run, and that is done in conjunction with this project that we are doing with Autophysiopsychic Millennium, their summer residency. The basis of the Autophysiopsychic Millennium course at Hub, as well as the Afrofuturist literature elective, is the novella Night in the Garden of Love by Yusef Lateef. It was published in 1988, and it is a sort of climate science fiction novella that is really about finding our humanity through adversity. In the case of the novella, it's really about people losing their ability to be connected to themselves because they're being literally suffocated by the climate and the earth is turning into a black hole. Within the novella, there is a scene where the characters are sort of in a very clear search, and they're traveling through a forest and they hear a voice, and that voice leads them to a clearing where there is a chapel and a performance occurs. And in reading the novel, we really felt that there was a great connection between the Greek Theater at Cranbrook, which is, of course, a performance venue in the middle of a forest that has long and winding paths from all over campus that lead to this space, and this scene in the novella. So there's sort of this allegory to finding yourself and finding yourself in this beautiful place and the physical reality here on Cranbrook's beautiful campus. For me, this is a really important project to bring specifically to Cranbrook because at our heart, Cranbrook is about the creative expression of the individual and creating a space for experimentation, a place for an artist to find themselves fully. This project was initiated by Cranbrook Art Museum, but is a partnership between Cranbrook's Horizons Upward Bound program, which is a program for Detroit youth, and the Multicultural Affairs Office at the Cranbrook Schools. And it really has been a one Cranbrook project. So many different units at Cranbrook have participated in this production and really made it all come together, and we are so excited to have the opportunity to involve everyone in something so meaningful.
Mother Earth is pregnant for the third time, for y'all have knocked her up with corruption. I've seen what you have done, and I am offended. So I will release these burdens in order to show your deeds, and she will speak justly and clear. From what it took eons to create, even with your short life, you have corrupted her in such a short time. These are your deeds. January 2001. He has one good eye since birth, and for this, his associates call him mutant. In spite of his 47-year-old face having only one good eye and a protruding bump in place of another eye, his body resembles that of a Spartan. February 2001. Mr. and Mrs. Scorpy are enjoying white flowers in their virtual reality as they're sinking deep into the impossible garden. He imagines her body is as lovely as was Cleopatra's. His impaired visual ability doesn't allow him to see that her body looks like something to be shipped in parts and assembled rapidly. Obviously, she's undergone some type of mutation. His oily skin resembles some kind of synthetic fiber, the kind resistant to wrinkling and weathering. His nose, triangular in shape, has several strands of red hair hanging from within each nostril. His mouth looks like something that was left over as a remainder. His chest is slightly triangular in shape, which is harmonious with his nose as a design. The melody ain't the same. Where did you go? Where do we go from here?
I can't remember who's to blame, 'cause the memory, no, it ain't the same. But where did you go?
I remember whence we came, but the melodies ain't the same. Where did you go? do we go from here? Where did you go? Where do we go from here? December 2001. As the dream begins, the first thing seen through the fevered fantasies of the mutant at the crisis of a fatal disease. The first thing seen is Caffarelli. With vision turned inward, sitting in a chair and rocking in the corner of a room. He appears to be meditating, unaware of his physical self.
How can my health be restored? And where's my Dido? She's my queen. I don't know. Some awkward interval has destroyed our dream.
An unpleasant memory surfaces. Odors of fresh pig dung. So offensive as to imply, nevertheless, that riding with pigs in a livestock transport truck from Rochester to Manhattan is better than walking the distance. Yet, Caffarelli's mind moves while his body is rocking. The lights are not bright. They've always been dim. Perhaps this is the evening of his new life. Now he realized, although he is not sure, that these objects around him are not as important as he once thought. the saxophone, the metronome, the spinets, and the 24-staved music score. He wonders.
Is it even worth the effort?
May 2003. Mr. Scorpy finishes a day of work at the recycling complex and is looking for flowers to give to Mrs. Scorpy. He finds a small patch of flowers, and as soon as he begins to pick them, as if the flowers were sentient beings, the sonic experience begins. Mr. Scorpy gathers his last flower. His subjective sensation subsides. Although he has found the small flowers, they are on the verge of withering due to the sweltering heat. He crosses the road and drives home to surprise Mrs. Scorpy. February 2004. Caffarelli is standing on stage. There is not a single utterance from the audience, nor is there a whisper. The audience is waiting calmly, although the expressions on their faces denote anxiety. October 2004. The child capriciously skips rope on the sidewalk in front of the terraces. The movements give her joy, tingle after tingle, at the level of high jubilance, disappearing only for milliseconds. She moves with constant regularity, and at the same time, she is erratic, generating a rhythm of uncommon sound at the place where the rhythm originates. One duration after the other from the sidewalk surface disperses quickly. She has come to a standstill in the core of its temporal values, of its autophysiopsychic durations. Her main intent is to experience joy.
Autophysiopsychic music. Autophysiopsychic music. Autophysiopsychic music. Autophysiopsychic music. Autophysiopsychic music. Autophysiopsychic music. Autophysiopsychic music.
Autophysiopsychic music. March 2005. Mr. Scorpion and the Mutant sit together at the recycling complex. The mutant is wondering if Mr. Scorpy recognizes the sacrifices a dancer makes to growing generations. Does anyone recognize the dancers in the same sense that soldiers who give their limbs and lives to protect the homeland are sacrifices? Or if he, the mutant, is being offered as a sacrifice to a dystopia? Having absorbed the mutant's thoughts, Mr. Scorpy turns toward the mutant and speaks.
My dear dancer, the activity of the dancer is not so much an exercise of sacrificial movement, but a necessary action produced by an aesthetic want. Destroys hunger for music and rhythm, and you at once annihilate the very principle of his being, perhaps for a lifetime. It is easy to discover the cause of the scattered lives of musicians and dancers, especially those that produce improvised music and their estrangement from society. They have been refused the most valuable spark of human ecology, and despite their love of mankind, they are denied proper access to temporal interrelationships. And the bonds of true art and the media, they have no attachment to each other. It's due to the inability of the media and these learning institutions to focus on these specific, particular artists that they are estranged from society. Not entirely, but for the most part.
Dear Mr. Scorpy, the hearts of the real artist they are adorned with love and beauty. And it is these things that bring a comfort to their hearts. On the contrary, the hearts of the artists who are without these things are prone to declare a decree of disdain. And in so doing affect a disgruntlement on their own minds, as well as in the minds of the patrons and recipients of their artifacts. In fact, the pseudo-artists will give you dubious artifacts, and they will disappoint you. But in spite of the far from palatable and somewhat violent effect on your being, be merciful. Do not indict them for maladministration or manipulation of your soul. No, Mr. Scorpy, be kind. Do not wish them a frame for the malfeasance of your mind. Perhaps nature has ordained that they serve only the distempered spirits, not unlike a putrid, amniotic fluid. The only antidote is love. You must love them. You don't have to love their artifacts, Mr. Scorpy, but you must love. You must love. You must love them.
June 2005. Now, beyond the irrational concept of life that until now completely blocked their view, Mr. and Mrs. Scorpy are beginning to see the meaning of life, the purpose of birth, the importance of childhood, the gradual movement toward maturity, old age, and death. They see themselves rhythming within life's cycle. Still, if they could recognize the real purpose of their existence, such is not the case. For the thin veil that covers their spiritual vision barricades their inner vision of reality. It has taken them years, obviously, to realize that this life has many rhythms. They should have anticipated it before now. Their New York experiences, cut out of cacophony, are not unlike an aborted step. At their present level of coarse existence, even considering the thin and far-fetched nicities, it consummates no more than a sojourn. Soon they will learn that their salvation depends on their intentions and what they are doing to better the conditions of those around them. Although Mr. and Mrs. Scorby welcomed the park's vegetation after being surrounded by river, plastic, and steel, a park sculpture, perhaps a Henry Moore's, nevertheless comes into view where the birds of various sizes disappear into the gloomy sky. In the park, the vegetation is without little flowers with branching clusters. They continue through the park, cut out of a rock, toward their future. Two souls face the future. Each heart is decorated with love and acutely attuned to each other. The only skyscrapers still visible are mental ones. The movement toward maturity, old age, and death. The windows of their souls are still not quite clear, and the door which leads to the understanding of life is only partially opened.
We're in the apple.
And this is where we should be.
All right then. Well, let's make it good.
They continue to walk slowly, observing, reflecting. Things look so different. Landmarks once taken for granted, now missing. What once was Seneca Village, now called Central Park. The longing for familiarity is palpable. They wonder until they stumble upon the village, lined with brownstones. The bottom line.
We're in the apple.
We're in the apple.
going to invite everyone to just take a couple minutes to breathe, to relax. It's kind of tense right now, right? If you'd like to stand up, you can, because that was just part 1 of 10. I'm joking. I'd like to recognize Auntie Aisha, who is the widow of Dr. Yusef Abdul Lateef. I think she's still here somewhere. Right there in the back. Okay, so let's give her a big hand. None of this would have been possible without her blessings. So we owe a great tribute to Dr. Yusef Abdul Lateef, who performed here in '58. So this is like his children returning home for another generation. So just take a minute, and we'll get right back to it.
In these 5 minutes, we ask that you don't leave your seats, but instead take this time to take a few deep breaths, to notice the scenery around you, to turn around and talk to the person next to you, because that's what community is about.
October 2005. Caffarelli sits at the spinet and searches for an idea. He's thinking, but he can't form a concept. Troubled, he reflects.
Where is she? She promised to return. It's you.
It's me. Did you miss me, Caffarelli?
Very much so. Are you here to stay this time?
I am. Come stand with me by the window. You know, Caffarelli, you're a great husband.
Thank
The best
you,
in
dear.
the world.
And you're the best wife.
You know I can't stand to see him fail. Make me good for him and him good for me. You know best the reason why we are here. Make us successful. And I promise I will do the best that I can to support and be there. It's a great melody, Caffarelli.
Thank you, my dear. I shall play to you now.
May 2006. The mutant is moving about within the recycling complex, an aimless movement, for he is alone, without an audience. He walks briskly on tiptoes, coming to a stop near the conveyor belt. He's not prepared for what he sees, for this is quite unusual. A mutant fruit fly, 30 times life size, hovering over the conveyor belt. The mutant wonders if the fly understands the meaning of its own movements. The mutant floats toward the fly. He feels that he has shared some of the fly's experiences, like he's been linked together harmoniously in space, not with the robots, but with a fruit fly. Through a somewhat mutually shared motive, and through this fundamental form of expression, a performance has been created, in spite of no audience. The mutant continues dancing, moving out of the complex and onto the streets. His body translates into movements, his perception of the objects he sees around him. And tumbles, and with each step finds more joy and freedom than the last. By the time he's reached 50th and Broadway, a crowd of people have surrounded him and are shouting excitedly.
I have to dance in spite of everything.
I hear you. I'm with you.
become more and more expressive. They pour themselves onto the streets, and the spectators join, freeing themselves, letting go, living. At the same time, Mr. Scorpy is back at the recycling complex, but has to head to the National Association of Ornithologists. He heads out to the city and sees the mutants dancing in the streets. Mr. Scorpy becomes intoxicated with the mutants' freedom and suddenly wants to dance. He feels that he has learned the rudiments of dance language. He feels that his body has learned to think for itself and can now work in unity with the mutant while still remaining an individual. He wants to work on his talk for the National Association of Ornithologists. So he turns to the mutants and begins to recite.
Dear members of the National Association of Ornithologists, Ecologists, and Visitors, it gives me great pleasure, and it makes my feathers rise, to be here with you tonight. I want you to know that you are my family, just as the Grebes are a worldwide family. Many of you I've met time and time again in the Northeast and Eastern Canada. You are like most elegant hosts tonight, as always. I see others from Alaska, North Dakota. Some of you have never seen before. In fact, some of you are rare birds. But I love you all. You are all my family. As you know, the Earth is now a black hole, and subsequently, the pressure at the core of the contracting Earth is rising, surrounding us more and more with clouds of interstellar gas and dust fragments from another galaxy. That is why we must fly out of this black hole. Together. I will end on a more positive note for my closing. The poem. The bird flew down into the ground. He chirped. He sang his song throughout the day. I marveled. He sang of love and beauty. I listened. He flew away into the sky. I remember.
to introduce everyone who is up here. Give it up for Sojourner Zenobia as the mutant. Lena Martin, Indira Edwards, King Sophia on strings. King Sophia did arrangements. Aaron McCoy Jacobs, strings, piano, djembe. Give it up for Adam Zanellini on bass and flutes, percussion. Dave Hurley on percussion. Noor Muhammad on the drum kit. Michael Smith as narrator. Give it up for Taraji Munford playing Mrs. Scorpy. Luke Mosley, Mr. Scorpy. Myself, Tazina Ayub as the Turban Woman. Give it up for Mike Mumford as Caffarelli. And our creative director, please give it up for Lou Fuki. We're Autophysiopsychic Millennium.
One more time for Autophysiopsychic Millennium. This has been Something Else in the Garden. Give it up for our Hub students who joined us.